Live. Dave Lochran, Adam Shaw, glad to be with you. God, I love this show. I love basketball. I love it. I'm so glad basketball season is underway and that baseball season won't be starting for like, I don't know, another month, Adam.
Yeah, Josh and I talked about it this morning. I mean, we were on the show for like 2 hours just talking about the slate game by game, and it kind of flew by because basketball is just fun to talk about, and you can talk about so many different aspects of it, DFS related. So yeah, I really enjoy these shows.
Yep, so do I, man. We're glad to have all of you with us. Uh, quick piece of just something to quickly note here. Tomorrow, smaller slate at 6:15 Eastern Time. Alex Baker, aka Awesomeo, as you've heard, Awesomeo.com. He has a little something to do with that. He'll be joining us at 6:15 to talk about his monster wins yesterday, two individual $100,000 wins. So Alex Baker, aka Awesomeo, 6:15 Eastern Time, Thursday night. You want to stick around for that. But for now, Adam, let's jump into it. We've got 11 games on the docket, so a lot to get through. Waiting for everyone to get in here, try and get these tweets out there, make sure that we get everybody in here as soon as possible because there's a whole lot to talk about. But let's start it off. Cleveland and Brooklyn, two bad defenses. I will say that Brooklyn's defense should improve a little bit with Rondae Hollis-Jefferson back in the mix, but not really playing in the preseason and then missing the first few games of the season. I can't imagine that he's going to play unlimited minutes tonight. Just kind of an interesting game from a few standpoints, one of them being that Kevin Love, despite his usage rate being below 30% this year, I expect that to rise significantly. He is the go-to guy. He's averaging 23 rebound opportunities per game. Phenomenal rebounder, undersized front court in Brooklyn. The biggest question about much of this slate, because there are so many good plays, is going to be how do we fit all of them and which ones are we going to have to wipe out of the player pool simply because we don't have enough space for them.
Yeah, I mean, I would be kind of surprised if I end up with anyone much more than 30% owned across 150 lineups tonight,
Right.
just because there are so many plays and there's so many different ways to approach roster construction. So I think that is really important to point out on the top. There are slates where I am pretty comfortable going 60 to 80% on someone. This is not one of those slates.
Yeah, it's not. It's not because there are so many guys that are so close in my projections. Look, Kevin Love has been very good. You're looking at back-to-back 17-plus rebound games. And really, he hasn't done a whole lot in the scoring department yet. That's going to come. Like, he shot 6 for 19, 6 for 19, and 5 for 18, Adam. That's not something that's going to continue. He's going to get hot. He's going to be Kevin Love is going to start putting the round ball into the hoop. And something that I talk about a lot and I think is really important is where players are shooting from. And Kevin Love is taking 36% of his shots from within 3 feet of the basket and 34% of his shots from three-point range. So you're talking about 70% of his total shots being either high efficiency or high production value points. Kevin Love is a high fantasy producer. And once those buckets start going down, we're going to start seeing some really monster games from him on a Cleveland team that's devoid of consistent scoring.
Yeah, absolutely. I expect him to get less playing time at the 5 now that Larry Nance is back, but I'm still not too concerned about that because he should have usage going forward this year. It's still a nice matchup. Hollis Jefferson being back, like you said, it should help Brooklyn's defense, but volume is just going to be so high, and an opportunity for Love to rebound and to score on this team is just through the roof. So I do really like him. He's a little bit expensive relative to some other guys that I think have really high ceilings as well, but just absolutely love the ceiling here for Kevin Love. I think George Hill and Colin Sexton are both interesting value plays. We hadn't seen them play alongside each other much before the last game when they actually got a lot of run alongside each other. Colin Sexton's only 3,900 on DraftKings, so I think that's kind of interesting. And then Cedi Osman on DraftKings is only 5,800. I think you see him play 35 to 37 minutes, has a 22% usage rate so far this year. Just too cheap of a price tag, I think, on him.
Yeah, Osman's the guy that outside of Love, I think is a very solid play here. You're just look, volume is king when it comes to basketball, and he's seeing it, right? Even last game where he disappointed, he still played 39 minutes. He's still got up 15 field goal attempts. He's still getting a good amount of looks from beyond the arc, and he's still dishing out some assists as well. That to me, that's important. That's exactly what you're looking for in someone like him who is sub 6K. I think him and Love are both in perfectly good spots. Uh, in terms of the Brooklyn side of the ball, it's really hard for me to get excited about anyone. I mean, you have D. Russ, who is going to have a good game from time to time, but I could list off like 5 guys in the 6 to 7K range at the same position that I like more. Karis LeVert's price point is up to the point where I don't feel comfortable with it. Hollis Jefferson in his first game back. And then with somebody like Jared Allen, very volatile. And I don't think it's a terrible play here, but I don't think it's a great spot either. Are you in the same page with Brooklyn, or do you have more interest than I do?
No, I'm there too. On a slate this deep, I think that even if you do really like buy into Karis LeVert and Jared Allen like I do, I still think that it's tough to get there because you're talking about guys who are probably going to play 30 to 32 minutes when there is just an abundance of people in the mid range that are high usage, high volume options that are going to play like 36 minutes. You're really asking for a lot to go right, both with like a D'Angelo Russell or a Karis LeVert being very efficient on their end, but also with a handful of other guys having poor shooting performances across the slate. So it's really tough for me to prioritize anyone here from Brooklyn.
Yeah, me too. And I don't think I'm going to. I just simply don't think it's necessary. We did have a question in chat, so I'll touch on it because, we're nice guys. And iCasino said that he loves the show, which means that I love him. He said, "Can you talk about Tristan Thompson for me, please? He's a great play tonight for cheap on DraftKings versus Brooklyn, who give up mad points to centers and no Nance," he says. You can go ahead and speak to that.
Yeah, I think it's
But
a pretty decent spot for Thompson. If we have no Nance, I'd missed that news though, so I'm pulling that up now. Have
That's
you
what
seen that?
I'm No, that's what I was looking for as well. Um, literally as he wrote it, I was trying to figure this out. If there's no Nance, then yeah, but if do you see it?
No.
Um, I mean, I know Ben Simmons is planning on playing. I don't see anything on Larry Nance. The only thing I can assume is that maybe uh, iCasino got a little bit confused from him being out in previous spots. So I think we have Nance here, and that kind of just takes
Right.
any shine off of Thompson, who doesn't shoot the ball to begin with.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I have Thompson projected for like 28 to 30 minutes, Nance to play the rest at center. So it's an okay spot, but I mean, there's just so many good spots on this slate that I don't see myself going there, especially because Thompson's price has
Right.
climbed because of the minutes that he's been playing.
I was gonna say Tristan Thompson's not that cheap, right? Like he's
Right.
not that inexpensive.
Yeah.
I'd rather play JaVale McGee, and I'll tell you why later.
Well,
Um,
honestly, between those two, if I had gun to my head, if I had to play one, I think I would play Larry Nance just because if he somehow gets into 24, 25 minutes, he's the one that's more likely to go for like 40.
yeah, it's definitely see. Well, I'll give you my reasoning on McGee later. Maybe I can sway some opinions here, but I have some thoughts on that could make some sense. But that game we'll definitely get to shortly. Uh, Dallas and Atlanta. Look, this is a game that there's going to be some popularity here, right? First of all, it's just amazing to see some of these over-unders this year. Uh, every year they creep up. I think we're going to start seeing it balance out a bit, but 236.5 total here between Dallas and Atlanta. In Atlanta, Trae Young, Adam has been really solid this year, and it helps when there's really nobody else on the team that's very good. Um, but I'm going to let you talk to Trae Young because I want to talk on Prince for a second. So Taurean Prince, let's assume that he's going to get 30 plus minutes. Atlanta is playing in transition more than any team not named the Lakers this year. I know it's a small sample, but a lot of times you can gain a lot from play type data. Dallas has allowed more points per possession in transition than any team, and it should come as no surprise to anyone. And Harrison Barnes remains out tonight as well, so the perimeter defense becomes even weaker when you're talking about guys like Prince. Moreover, Prince is averaging 0.47 points per touch. Now, it's going to come down, I get it, but he has a 31% usage rate. This Mavericks defense is really bad. Hawks are playing at the second fastest pace in the league. I already mentioned the transition frequency of this team and how bad the Dallas Mavericks have played in transition defense. And Prince, has one of the top transition possession number of transition possessions in basketball this season. I think this could be a really interesting spot for Prince, who I think is going to turn out to be a really solid fantasy player this season.
Yeah, 30% usage rate so far this year too. I'm actually glad you brought up those stats because I hadn't really dug into it. But when I was putting stuff into the projection model that I use, he was kind of jumping off the page, and I didn't really feel that great about it. But yeah, I think that he certainly has upside here. The Hawks rotation, I think, is going to become kind of a pain in the ass to predict outside of Trae Young. Like Young, I think, is always going to get his minutes, and then Prince and Bazemore, as long as they're playing well, will get theirs. Same probably for Alex Len. But with Dedmon coming back, it opens up more minutes for Omari Spellman and Alex Poitras to take from other people and to really be obnoxious with that. So I think it makes those guys a little bit riskier because if they're not playing well, you could just see a hot hand approach where they don't play as much. But that has nothing to do with their ceiling in tournaments. There's no question how high the ceiling is on Prince and to a lesser extent Len and Bazemore. But Trae Young, is my favorite guy here, playing massive minutes. I think played 20 first half minutes.
Lynn's not playing at all. It's crazy. I thought Lynn would at least be getting 20 minutes a game.
Yeah, they're just not playing alongside each other at all. We saw like a 2-minute stretch where Lynn played alongside him in the first half last game, but outside of that, just not playing alongside each other whatsoever. And Trae Young's just going out there playing really, really well and playing huge minutes. So I think that at his current price tag, it's just, keeps being a really, really good play. And then you also, if you wanted to go down narrative street, you have him, going against Luka in this game.
Yeah, that's going to be fun because the other side of this game is interesting as well. I got to say though, obviously Luka Doncic is the guy that is the one that everyone loves on this Dallas team, and rightfully so. I mean, he's been pretty reliable. He's kind of a do it all, jack of all trades type play. But I did just want to point this out, and I mentioned it in today's deep dive article as well, which if you haven't read, I would ask that you do so. Put a lot of time into that one. Dennis Smith Jr. Look, he hasn't been great to start the year, Adam, but he did play season high 31 minutes last game. And in terms of ownership, everyone's looking towards Doncic, and no one's really looking to Dennis Smith Jr. But here's the one thing. He still has a 26% usage rate. He still leads the team in touches by a wide margin. He leads the team in passes made, meaning that or passes received, meaning that he's still very involved in this offense. And he's facing a really bad Hawks backcourt defense that, I don't expect him to see Kent Bazemore on ball defense. If he does, that changes things, but I don't think that'll be the case. I think Dennis Smith is going to have one of those games soon enough where he puts up big numbers. Will it be tonight? Very good chance it won't be. But while everyone's playing Doncic, there's going to be that game where Dennis Smith erupts because the underlying numbers, and still the 26% usage, it's all still there. It just hasn't been put together yet.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of makes for a really good leverage play off of Doncic. I have two issues with him where I don't think it's like the perfect leverage play. One is that he's playing less minutes. That's concerning to me, especially at a point guard position that's really deep. And two, he's a point guard, whereas now Luka is shooting guard, small forward eligible on DraftKings, which makes it just so easy to get him into pretty much any lineup. So I do agree that Dennis Smith Jr. goes overlooked and he does have a ceiling here. That being said, I will have much more Luka than I will Smith.
Interesting comment. Brooke Lopez tonight. Embiid can't guard anyone. That's interesting.
Embiid sucks, man. You're just a homer.
Yeah, I know. Dude, Embiid's literally blocked like half the shots that are attempted on him this year, and then players have just stopped attempting on him. Blake Griffin, though, last night, that was something else. I actually think, well, we'll get to this because I think if there was a game to go after to attack Embiid, it would be today after he played 39 minutes last night. That doesn't necessarily help him. But
do you think having Giannis projected for 74.5 DraftKings points is too high?
I mean, yeah, obviously.
But that's what I have.
Why is that what you have, Matt?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Here's why it's not totally crazy is because when you talk about a rim protector and Joel Embiid, a lot of that's done in the half court. And a lot of what Giannis is doing is taking those antelope-like strides down the court, blowing by defenders, and there's no one at the rim by the time he gets there. You know what I mean? So rim protection in terms of Embiid matched up against Giannis, it's not really the same as you would look at it against the guy that's going to post up on him. So I don't think it's that scary of a matchup for Giannis.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about it more when we get to that game, but yeah, I think it's a
Well,
really interesting
what
spot.
what else do you have for Dallas and Atlanta though? Because it's obviously a game where you're going to see a lot. And as I mentioned, I think that Smith Jr. as a tournament play is interesting. I'm going to sprinkle him. It's not like I'm going to have a lot. There's no real reason to jam him in. But Trae Young, uh, Taurean Prince, Doncic, there's a lot from this game that you can like.
Yeah, you can throw Wes Matthews in there too. I think at like 5,200 on DraftKings. I think he's 54 on FanDuel. Should play 35 minutes. Should get up plenty of shots against a pretty bad defense in what should be a pretty fast-paced game. So, yeah, another secondary play from that game. Luka and Trey are my two favorites, with Prince not too far behind.
All right, let's move it on. Minnesota and Toronto. This just again, you talk about the 30%. It's going to be hard to have anyone above 30%. This just feels like a blow up game for Kawhi Leonard. I mean, it feels like all of the pieces align here, man. He plays heavily in transition, and Butler's defense has gone down year after year. There's just another thing too is that this is a Minnesota team last year that allowed the highest shooting or field goal percentage at the rim. Kawhi's going to have no trouble getting to the rim in this game. To me, it just feels like one of those nights where Kawhi explodes. But he's in that weird price range on DraftKings and on FanDuel.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit lower on him than you. I didn't have much of him last slate, and I don't think I'm going to end up with much here. It's not that I dislike him. He obviously has a big role in this team, and it's not a bad spot. But seeing Jimmy Butler is worse than not seeing Jimmy Butler. And he's just relatively expensive compared to the mid-range guys on this slate, especially on DraftKings. I know on FanDuel they've done a better job of pricing up some of like the mid-range options, but on DraftKings he's 8,700, and you just have cheaper price tags on so many guys across the board. I have him projected for like 47 DraftKings points, which is really good. It's just that I have a lot of guys projected in that range for less money, so I kind of doubt that I end up with that much of him. I certainly don't want to talk anyone off of it. It's just that I like other guys for a little bit less.
Well, I'm the same way. Again, I think it's a really good spot for him, though. It's just I don't know how I'm going to fit him in. By the way, Sean V, please explain in chat why you only play Prince on the road and not at home. I Are the baskets a different size? I'm being dead serious. I would like to know. I'm always open. What's that?
And he could be colorblind like Ryan Anderson.
That could be it. That could be it. Oh, you remember those Ryan Anderson home road splits? That
Yep.
was something else. But in basketball, I have a tough time with that. Look, I'm open. I'm open to suggestions, and I'm open to my mind being changed. But um, until then, I don't think it's going to change much. Minnesota, Toronto, that will stick with this game. Kyle Lowry having a solid season. Him and Kawhi Leonard are definitely coexisting nicely, and you're seeing the assist totals really up there for Kawhi or for Kyle Lowry, which makes perfect sense. They don't have a ton of offensive firepower here unless you get Joe Val involved, which should happen more often than not, even though it doesn't. Where do you stand on this game, though, from both sides of it? We could talk about Minnesota as well.
Yeah, so for Toronto, we're still, as far as I know, waiting on the starting lineup. I think that makes a huge difference, and it will pretty much every slate that Toronto is on. I'm expecting Valanciunas to get the start here. I mentioned it on the show this morning with Josh. Obviously, it's a different coach in Toronto than in the past, but Dwayne Casey, when he was there, was very hesitant to ever let Valanciunas play against quote-unquote stretch fives, but he still let Valanciunas go out there and play big minutes against Karl Anthony Towns. It wasn't a matchup that concerned him, and because of how hesitant he was to ever put Valanciunas in those spots, I'm assuming that they're going to be willing to let him. The new coaching staff's going to see this as a spot where he matches up better than Ibaka does at the five. So I currently have Valanciunas projected to start and play about 24 minutes. It's a spot where I think he can be really productive. He's always a really high fantasy point per minute producer. It's just a matter of getting the minutes, and I think this is a spot where he does. If it comes out that he's not starting, then obviously I'll downgrade him. But as of right now, I do have interest in him. I think that Danny Green is kind of an interesting, value guy at 4,400. He's going to play around 30, 32 minutes. He should get some open looks on this offense because of the presence of Kawhi and because of Kyle Lowry. And then on the other side, Karl Anthony Towns, I think, is really, really interesting. He hasn't been good, and everyone knows that, but his price tag on DraftKings is down to $8,200. And this is a spot where I expect Kawhi Leonard to be on Jimmy Butler, which just means I think usage should funnel to Towns and to Andrew Wiggins, assuming he plays. The price tag's cheap. It's a good matchup for Towns. I really like going to him here and hoping that we can get a bounce back spot from him.
No, I think it's a fair point. We talked was it 2 days ago about, freezing Kawhi out of games, and I don't know if that's going to be the case, right, with Butler, but it could be. And you also have, as of right now, do we have a ruling on Wiggins?
He's questionable, but the game is in Toronto. He says he's going to play. It's a homecoming game for him. He doesn't miss games anyway. It would be pretty surprising if he doesn't, I think.
It would, but if he's not at 100%, that also works more in Towns' favor. I hate playing Karl Anthony Towns, but you couldn't be more right about the price point. He's down there cheap enough where it would be pretty difficult for Towns to kill you at 8,200, at least on DraftKings.
Yeah, and he can absolutely win you a slate.
He can, yeah. It's kind of amazing how, after seeing his rookie campaign and even his second, after seeing what he did over his first, in that rookie season, what is he in his fourth year now?
I don't remember. That sounds right.
Third or fourth? I can't remember. Because he was drafted in the Okafor. He was drafted at the Okafor draft. I remember that because he went for. Let's see. This is his fourth season now. His first 2 years were wild, and then last year, obviously, this isn't to say that he was bad. He wasn't bad at all, but I think everyone expected like more of a progression as it went on, and he kind of hit a ceiling.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of that had to do with bringing in Jimmy Butler, who just dominated so much on the offensive end. But I think part of it also just has to do with Cat being who he is and being kind of soft and not assertive offensively.
Yeah. We're having a discussion here. One time we'll have to take more time into the home and road splits. We'll definitely dig deeper into this one, but we don't have the time to do it right now. But you know what? Again, open to any and all ideas. How about New York and Miami? You know what? I'm just going to be frank with you. I think you and I are probably you're probably going to be on different pages here. You probably have more in this game that you like than I do, but I messaged you this morning about Hassan Whiteside, hoping that there would be people expecting him not to get the minutes. If you looked at his minutes, first of all, he played 28 minutes against Washington, and they played small for the majority of that game. So 28 minutes in that game is actually that's a good thing.
Yep.
And then he played 8 minutes in the first half against Charlotte because he got caught 3 early fouls. And then he played almost the entire second half, right? And then in the first game against Orlando, when you had 2 7-footers combining for like 52 minutes in Mo Bamba and Vucevic, he played 34 minutes. Well, Enes Kanter is playing 30-plus minutes each night. And they're going to want Kanter out there. I think this is a spot where Hassan Whiteside, and it's interesting because Enes Kanter is one of the better offensive big men in the league, and he's one of the better rebounding big men in the league, but he's easily one of the worst defensive bigs in the league, right? So with Hassan Whiteside, this makes for a really good spot for him. He is well over 1 fantasy point per minute producer. If he gets the 30-plus minutes that I'm expecting tonight at 7,400, I just love him.
Yeah, me too. Like you said, you and I talked about that this morning, and the minutes he played against Washington, that was a game that I was afraid he was going to get run off the court, and he didn't. He fouled himself off the court, but the minutes were really nice. And like you said, Kanter should play about 33 here. I don't see any reason, barring foul trouble or injury, that Whiteside isn't out there for basically every single one of them. And and the price tag's still really appealing for a guy that can go out there and pretty easily put up 50 plus fantasy points, especially against a high usage center in Cantor. He's gonna have so many chances for defensive stats as well as
Yep.
what he's on the offensive end. So yeah, I really really do like Whiteside a lot here. Easily my favorite play from Miami. With Justice Winslow coming back, it kind of makes everything else unappealing. You have Derek Jones Jr. doubtful to play, so I think the power forward minutes end up split between Winslow and Olynyk, maybe a couple to someone else. But other than Whiteside, it kind of just turns into a mess where I think Richardson plays a couple less minutes than he was before.
Yep.
Trickle back to where Magruder plays a couple less minutes as well. Goran Dragic, I could be talked into. I doubt that I'll have a ton of him, but the price tag's somewhat appealing.
Yeah, I think with this game, it's like I can't play everybody. Dragic is fine, but he's not a priority play. You make the same argument for a guy like Hardaway, whose usage alone, always makes him an option in tournaments. Just because when you're taking 20 shots every game, you're going to have value, right? It's that simple. If you're jacking up 20 plus shots a game and 8 or more threes, then yes, you definitely are going to catch our attention. But the prices are getting up there. You mentioned with Richardson, it's really tough to say what we expect now that Winslow is returning. Um, it kind of makes it an easy spot to just fade there. But Whiteside to me definitely my favorite play from this game.
Does
Do you
it
have
concern
anything?
you does it concern you how good of a rebounder both of them are?
Well, that's it's funny you say that because I think I mentioned on Monday that Enes Kanter, last time we spoke, led the league in rebound opportunities. Like he's a very, very good rebounder. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, um, both of these guys, look, both of these guys are racking up the majority of their boards on the defensive glass, right? So no, it doesn't worry me that much. I mean, I don't think that you see the rebound siphoned away as much as people make it seem a lot of times, unless it's someone like the first guy that came to mind was Jordan Hill, not even in the league anymore, like a Kenneth Faried, like a crash the glass offensive rebounder, a hustle type guy, right? But in terms of Hassan Whiteside, you're talking about somebody who will gather a few offensive boards and putbacks per game, which is certainly going to happen. But on the other side of the glass, it doesn't worry me that much. I think there's going to be enough opportunity for both of them. Not to mention that on this Miami team, who else is really that? Who else is siphoning rebounds away? And then who else in New York is coming in and grabbing a heap of rebounds? So if that makes sense, that kind of has me not concerned too much at all.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think that I do slightly, very, very slightly splitting hairs, prefer Cantor to Whiteside just because, for one, they're very limited previous history. Cantor's been a little bit better. And for two, I just think that he's the better rebounder out of the two. And if I expected one of them to do a better job, it would be him.
All right, let's keep it moving then. Anything else in this game?
No, you mentioned Hardaway as a guy that is always in play in tournaments.
Yeah.
Someone asked in chat earlier about Damian Dotson. I have him projected in the low 20s in minutes, assuming that Baker plays. I think that a big reason that Dotson saw so many minutes last game had to do with just a weird game flow and Baker getting his forehead split. So I have him projected in the low 20s. I do think Hazonia is a good value play, though. I have him projected around 26 minutes. He's still cheap, and we know that he can produce when he's on the floor.
All right, sounds good to me. We will move on to Charlotte and Chicago. This one's one that we can definitely spend some time on. Chris Dunn out for 4 to 6 weeks. It's looking like with an MCL sprain. This fella just can't get right. Cameron Payne's going to start. Zach LaVine, Adam, has scored 30 plus points in all 3 games this season. And what's interesting about him is that if you look at his career splits, right now, we obviously would expect his scoring to regress a bit. No, he's not going to score 30 points every game, but on a per game basis, this is actually a guy who, based off of last year, he has this season no real steals at all. He actually is due for a little bit of positive regression in the other peripheral categories. So I think that's a positive sign, being that I don't expect him to score 30 points a night. But what are your thoughts on him now that we know he has a 35% usage rate with Chris Dunn off the floor in limited sample this year?
Yeah, and he plays huge minutes too. And then
Huge, yeah.
and there's a chance that Jabari Parker sits tonight.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
who else do they have? Antonio Blakeney?
right. Yeah, Chandler Hutchison. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that it's a really good opportunity for Levine to get up as many shots as he wants. Charlotte, I think, does have long enough defenders. Like Jeremy Lamb's long. They have Kid Gilchrist. There's no real other focal point on Chicago as far as Bobby Portis, obviously, but like that's going to have the ball in his hands and be looking to score. So I think it could be an inefficient game, but the minutes are going to be there, the shots are going to be there. I really like Levine a lot. The price tag's still too cheap. And then beyond him, I think Wendell Carter Jr. again is a really good value play. He's now got power forward eligibility in addition to center eligibility on DraftKings, so he's even easier to get in. I think you see him play around 30 to 32 minutes again, and he's not facing a high usage center like he did those first couple of games. Should be able to handle Cody Zeller perfectly fine and stay on the floor. So I like him quite a bit. And then beyond that, Cameron Payne, I think, plays 28, 30 minutes, so is a decent value option. Just understand that he's volatile because he's not particularly good. Bobby Portis, I have projected for like 30 to 32. If Parker sits, I think he gets up to about 37 and then becomes a really good play.
Man, I have trouble. I have trouble ever having any love for Cameron Payne.
Yeah,
Like the here's what I wrote today, and this is what I wrote. It's very short. Don't worry. Cameron Payne isn't someone I trust to post quality fantasy totals, even when provided expanded playing time. But he'll start in place of injured Chris Dunn and is positioned to see between 25 and 28 minutes. You can do worse, especially if Ben Simmons is active and TJ McConnell no longer has value. That's literally all I feel about Cameron Payne. I think you basically said the same thing. We know that this team is going to rotate a decent amount of guards. I mean, Arcidiacono has played 28 and 20 minutes in the two games that Chris Dunn didn't play. Blakeney played 30 and 22 minutes in those games. Like, there are other players here. So when I say 25, 28 minutes, I actually wouldn't be surprised if he played less than that, Adam. And maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, in the first game, it looks like a blowout, but that game actually stayed competitive for longer than you would think. And he played 22 minutes and shot 0 for 4. I can he give you 25? Yeah. But put it this way, if Cameron Payne is going to be chalky, like as a value play, I want nothing to do with him in tournaments. I'll put it that. That's simple enough.
Yeah, I do think I'm higher on him than you. I haven't projected for like 30 minutes. He's been basically splitting the point guard minutes with Ryan, however the hell you pronounce his last name.
Arcidiacono. He's
Yeah,
a Villanova guy.
yeah, that guy. So they've been splitting the point guard minutes.
Arcidiacono.
Blakeney was getting minutes at the 2. Blakeney appears to probably not even be in the rotation. With Chandler Hutchison suddenly playing over him. So I do think that Payne's minutes are a little more secure just because the point guard minutes have basically been split between two guys. As long as he doesn't play absolutely awful like he did in that first game, I think that he sees around 30. That being said, he's still very capable of playing really poorly.
Sure. You don't wonder, though, if Blakeney's minutes had to do with Chris Dunn as well? I mean, just the way that the rotations are working. The Chandler Hutchinson point is a valid one, but from 30 to 22 to 5 minutes, I guess Hutchison did take most of his run away. It would make sense. But
in their most recent game, Hutchison played every single minute that either Zach LaVine or Justin Holiday was not
Holiday.
on. Black Blakeney only played for like the 3 or 4 minutes that they were both off the floor. He played alongside Hutchison.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, the problem with me is Payne. I could see him playing 22 minutes, 25 minutes, 28. I think a lot of it.
If he plays 22, I think your Villanova guy plays like 27.
Arcidiacono, yeah. Right, they'll split. Honestly, I tell you this much, and I don't even want to talk about Cameron Payne anymore. A lot of it is going to depend on if he's playing well or not,
Yep.
and that, you know what I mean.
Yep.
If the guy's playing well, he's going to stay on the court. So it's really all speculation. But Levine's a good play. The question is, there are a lot of shooting guards I like. There's one I talked about on Twitter today. We'll get to shortly that I really like. And there are, I mean, it's just a stacked position, especially on DraftKings where you have the MPE. Where do you rank Levine in terms of your shooting guards?
I don't have my projections listed in front of me, but I think I probably have him third or fourth.
Okay, yeah, I have him third, but they're pretty tightly grouped, not including James Harden, of course.
Yeah.
Um, and Wendell Carter Jr., very encouraging seeing the minutes. You talked about that on Monday. He got the 32 minutes. Was the production great? No, it wasn't. But at 4K, I say this quite a bit about centers, big centers. If you're playing 30 minutes at the 5, you can stumble into a double double, like you can stumble into a few putback opportunities and 10 rebounds just because you're on the floor playing close to the basket for 30 minutes a game. That may sound simplified, but if you've been playing DFS basketball long enough, you've seen it happen where a garbage center can come in, like Withy. Remember
Oh,
Withy for Utah, dude. The guy came in, played 30 minutes, and won people tournaments for like 5 straight nights. So just if you're out there long enough and you're around the basket, the ball is going to come close to you.
yep. Yeah, I have no issue going there, and the fact that he's not only a center now makes it even easier to play him.
For sure. Adam Dorn has an interesting question. He said, Laffy, thoughts on going balanced on DraftKings tonight and not playing anyone over 10K? I want your answer too, but I'll give it quickly. I've been trying to go back and forth with it. I honestly think both can be winning strategies. There are several guys above 10K that are in very good spots that have legitimate, 80 fantasy point upside, especially with Paul out, with Giannis playing a Philly team on a back-to-back, with LeBron James leading the 0-3 Lakers. That's for you, Ring Rim. Those type of guys. But I also, Adam, think that there are so many phenomenal plays in the 65 to 8 or to 9K range as well. I think there's a lot of different ways you can go, and I'm not sure there's a right way. But I'm assuming because you have Giannis projected at 74 fantasy points that you're going to disagree with me entirely.
No, I completely agree with you.
Oh, okay.
It's another
Look at
reason
that.
that I'm planning on capping my exposure to most guys around 30% because I think that there's not only are there a lot of plays that I like, there's a lot of different roster construction approaches that I can take. I don't think it's a clear start and scrub slate. I don't think it's a clear, balanced slate. I have a lot of balanced guys projected for, close to 50 points in my tournament projections. So when you factor that into the projection I have for Giannis, it's a little bit less crazy. So yeah, I mean, I think that especially on DraftKings, the mid range is still just so underpriced in terms of upside. Like the guys like Luca and like Trey Young and Whiteside and Cantor. Would it shock anyone if any single one of them went for 50 plus fantasy points tonight? Like I don't think it would be that surprising. And that's without even getting to the Lakers Phoenix game where there's going to be a ton of points and there's a ton of mid range plays. So I think that there's a lot of different ways to approach this slate.
Yeah, there's so many different ways. Anything from Charlotte for you?
Kemba,
Yeah.
absolutely love Kemba. Has been phenomenal going back to last season without Dwight Howard on the floor. Gets a really nice matchup against the Bulls here. You're
But
looking at a
wait,
guy with
but wait, dude. But hold on, dude. Kemba's home road splits.
yeah. Um, how many of those games were
I'm
against
just
the Bulls? No, I know.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I know. But yeah, so I like Kemba a lot. He should play, again, assuming game stays competitive, he should play 38-ish minutes. A 30+% assist percentage, like a 32% usage rate. Just an absolutely great spot for him. Nick Batum and Jeremy Lamb are both interesting because they're inexpensive and because I think that there's a pretty decent chance that this game plays somewhat small, and so you get big minutes from both of those guys. Kemba is clearly my favorite though.
Yeah. I'm not gonna have a ton of Kemba. Not that I don't like him. I just have him ranked below a lot of other players. I think Batum's interesting though. He's cheap. Um, he's not the same Batum as he once was, but you look at these competitive games and he's playing monster minutes, right? Like he's playing so many minutes. So I think that helps, long reach, defensive stats. But Batum's just look, honestly, you know this as well as I do. Batum's a guy that you're going to hate at the end of the night, or you're going to be super pissed that you didn't play him at 5,500, right? Because every so often he has that 50 fantasy point game, and then he goes back to giving you 21 to 30. Like that's just who he is.
You normally know how it's going to go by the end of the first quarter.
Yes, exactly. Exactly, and the thing is he's not shooting as much as he used to. Batum,
Yeah.
used to be a nice deep threat, and he is getting up three-point attempts, but that's all he's doing. Like, now he's basically just become, it feels like a 3 and D guy that collects, 4 or 5 rebounds a game, and I'm not huge on that, but I do think if there was a spot, to exploit, it's this one because this Chicago defense is not good at all. Um, alright, you wanna move on?
Yep.
Okay, so, James Harden, Adam, since the start of last year, has a usage rate boost of 6% with Paul off the court, and an assist rate that goes from 31 to 54%. 31 to 54%. That is outrageous no matter who you are, no matter who's off the court. It's insane. And his per minute production goes from 1.32, I believe, to 1.64. No Chris Paul means that James Harden is the James Harden that does literally everything. And no, sorry if I don't think Michael Carter Williams entering the starting lineup is going to take away ball handling duties.
Yeah, I fully expect Michael Carter Williams to go stand in a corner and probably just
Yeah.
mirror PJ
Exactly.
Tucker on the other side of the court and
Exactly.
just let James Harden and Clint Capella run pick and roll. Yeah, I mean, the matchup isn't great, obviously, and it's tough when you have Giannis against Philly and you have LeBron against the Suns at the same price point. But I do like Harden a lot. I have him projected very highly as well. I have him third out of that group, but it's you mentioned the numbers. It's just such a monster boost in his usage and his assist percentage, and there's no question he has a really high ceiling here. I think he's the third most likely to hit it, but that doesn't make him a bad play by any stretch. Yeah, so I probably won't have a ton just because I like the other guys so much, but it's still a nice spot with Paul out.
Yeah, right. It's like you don't worry too much about the matchup when you know that James Harden's going to be doing literally everything. But again, this isn't a game where Harden's the only guy above 11K either. You know what I mean? Like, you have plenty of other options
Oh yeah,
that
yeah.
that um by the way, I don't know if you saw my tweet today, and if you didn't, I accept your apology. You can follow us, by the way, at those names under our faces at Laffy_D at Ship My Money DFS, always handing out what I believe to be some valuable NBA and NFL information on the daily. Joe Joe Jingles leads the league in touches, Adam. He leads the entire league in touches through the first 1+ weeks. This is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, he's been pretty impressive, and it's gonna
He
cost me
leads
money.
the entire league in touches, and he plays for the Jazz that
Right.
play at one of the slowest paces in the league. This is insane. Just come on, get pissed.
It's
Get,
gonna cost
get,
me it's gonna cost me a lot of money if it keeps happening.
I know, man. It's crazy. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was agreeing. Like he's been playing really well, and I don't like it. I don't like his price tag, and it's gonna cost me money if he keeps doing it. Yeah, I mean, I think he's fine. I don't think I'll have much. I do think that you can go to some of these Jazz guys though in a pace-up game against a really bad Rockets defense so far. Ricky Rubio at 5,600, I really like in tournaments. Obviously completely capable of disappearing, but there's no question that he has, a 40-point ceiling at 5,600. That's pretty nice. Donovan Mitchell is shooting absolutely terrible so far this year. I believe I had the number in front of me this morning, a 43.2% true shooting percentage. That's going to come up, and he's playing big minutes. He's still got about a 29% usage rate. So I like him. I think Gobert is a decent play. I still prefer like Enes Kanter to him at the same price, but any of those guys. And then on the other side, Clint Capella, you mentioned the boost that James Harden gets with Paul out. Capella gets a nice bump as well because they just run pick and roll, him and James Harden, when Paul's not on the floor. About
Yeah,
a 20.5% usage rate for Capella, reasonably priced. I like him. Gerald Green gets, I think, 26 minutes. Jay Crowder plays about 30. Neither one is someone I'm super confident in, but I do think they both have pretty nice ceilings for their price tags.
for sure. Another thing about it blows my mind. Another thing about Joe Ingles, um, assists are one thing, but I think I like to look at potential assists. It's a really important number, and if you want to be able to find the NBA.com stats, and the reason to look at potential assists is because um, you may have a stretch of games where guys are dishing out decent passes and all of their opportunities are being bricked. Potential assists, well, it means that you're going to see regression one way or another. Joe Ingles has the same amount of potential assists per game this year as Ben Simmons, LeBron James, Kyle Lowry, and more than Kemba Walker, Trey. I could go like 14.3 potential assists per game for Joe Ingles. He's doing a lot more than the 3-and-D guy that he was brought into the league to be.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
It's really crazy. And he's averaging only 5 assists per game, which means that if those numbers are sustained, the potential assists, that he's actually due for positive regression in that category. All right, let's move on here, Adam. Let's talk about San Antonio and Indiana. This was the one guy I was referring to. I'm going to ramble and then I'm going to let you cover this entire game. I think you knew this was coming. You knew I was going to talk about him. So just sit back and let me do my thing for a minute here. Victor Oladipo, I had you know this last year, and Dan Stratford, who we both do the podcast with. Well, you do it mostly with EMAC, but I had a rule last year when Oladipo fell below 8K on DraftKings, I would almost always play him because sub 8K Oladipo is just way too cheap, right? It's just too cheap. And now you're talking about Oladipo at 7,800. I don't know if sites are still pricing guys low against the Spurs because they're, known as a vaunted defense, but it's not the case anymore. Even 82 on FanDuel for Depot is very solid. Now, excuse me. Oladipo has a 33% usage rate. He's locked into 33 plus minutes unless the game gets like wildly out of hand, and I don't expect that to be the case. Now let's talk about the Spurs defense. Also, Oladipo, here's something really strange. He leads the Pacers in touches, but he only has 57 per game. They're really spreading the ball around, but it doesn't matter because he's averaging 22 and a half field goal attempts per 36. So like literally every other time Oladipo touches the ball this season, he shot it. It's nuts. Okay, so I think this is Oladipo's first 50-plus fantasy point game of the year, might be 60. The Spurs, without Leonard, without Danny Green, without Dejounte Murray, either gone or injured, leaves San Antonio extremely vulnerable on the perimeter and in transition. So this year, small sample, but we're using the numbers we have. They're allowing the second most points per possession in transition, 1.39. That's a huge number. They rank dead last in defensive rating as a team, and they're also allowing the third most points per possession to ball handlers in the pick and roll, where Oladipo has seen the second most possessions of any player in the entire league, 52% frequency as a ball handler in the pick and roll. I also think they struggle in rim protection. So there are so many areas that Oladipo excels that I think the Spurs will struggle with all season long. It's so hard for me not to look at this game and say, or to look at this game and not think that Oladipo has every opportunity and probably the best of the season to blow up, Adam. All right. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Yeah, it looks like we lost Adam because he didn't really like your Oladipo take.
Oh, that son of a bitch. That son of a bitch, man. I was running. You got to be kidding me.
So, I liked your take, if that helps.
Oh, man.
Did that help at all?
Forgive him. I'm not forgiving him for this one. I'm not going to forgive him for this one. Anyway, no, look, Diarrhea Planet says, damn, dude, take a breath. I told you, my dude, I was going on a tangent. That was happening. San Antonio's defense isn't good, Josh. Like they're not good. And you lost 3 guys that were primary defenders last year.
I'm putting my lights on right now. I'm gonna pop my stupid face in this show until we get Adam back. His computer tends to restart at a snail's pace. So.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Let me get myself on here.
Ben Fleischner says, I'm putting Depot into a lineup just so I can give Laffy shit tomorrow. Okay. Ray asked if I'm playing Depot. Yeah, I'm playing him. Look, at 7,800, it's it. You're talking about a 35% usage player on a team that doesn't really that has no other ball dominant scores whatsoever, right? That's playing against the San Antonio team that can't defend the perimeter or in transition, and had their primary rim protector is 40 years old. It's just uh, basketball's basketball, but this is a really good spot, and I think it's perfect for him.
He's actually not popping up for me, and I'm not happy about it.
Yeah, it again, Oladipo probably from a projection standpoint might not be there, but he's attempted 20 plus shots in each of his last 3 games, and he's probably going to attempt 20 shots again today, and his peripherals are actually down from what we expect. So 7,800. It's a price point that I really like. What do you do? What do you have on this game between the Spurs and Pacers?
I have everything up here by position right now. Spurs and Pacers. So no Spurs, or by all accounts, no Spurs. Let me just massage my stuff a little bit and get this by team so I could take a look at it.
Look at you.
I'm good like that, man. I'm good like that. So Spurs, I literally don't have it all outside of a couple throwaway Patty Mills lines. But
Patty M.
Yeah, 3,900 on FanDuel. So, I mean, I have 150 lineups and I have 2% Patty Mills. So that's,
sure,
3 or 4. No Aldridge, no DeRozan, no Gay. Don't have any of these guys. And then
I don't either.
From the Indiana side, I basically don't have this game at all. I think that I'll regret not having Oladipo, and I'm before I had to just immediately jump in here quickly, I was working on what adjustments needed to be made to get to a little bit of Oladipo. I'm more on Devin Booker right now, and I think that's probably what I just need to do is knock back Devin Booker to what we're projecting, because he's currently the chalk shooting guard on FanDuel, and get a little bit more of Oladipo, who's at less than half of his projected ownership.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like, you have Oladipo, you have Levine, you have Doncic, you have Booker. I'll even throw Leonard in there. Oladipo, he's clearly not the only shooting guard that's in a good spot.
Right.
He's just one that I want to talk about because not many people are talking about him. And we can talk about the guys that are very popular until our faces turn blue, which I just did with Oladipo, even though he's not very popular. I just think, certain guys are underpriced, and when they are, I try and take advantage. I think Oladipo, generally speaking, being that he plays on a team, alongside guys like Collison and Tyreek Evans isn't really getting minutes, and Thad Young can't create. Bogdanovich is nothing but a spot up 3-point shooter, and we know what Miles Turner is about. Like, he is the guy in Indiana. So I think this game stays close. And, if it does, you could get upwards of 38 minutes from him. As far as San Antonio goes, I think you can literally, I feel like you can almost always make an argument for Aldridge and DeRozan just because they're going to offer 30% usage all season long. But I don't have either of them tonight. But, like I said, they're just guys that, when you're talking volume monsters, they're both going to be there. DeRozan's going to average 20 plus shots a game this season, and Aldridge might too. Like they may, when they're on the court, you're talking about like a combined 70% of field goal attempts soaked up by just those two guys. So
Aldridge is so weird for me in that I have him projected relatively low, and I look at 2 separate sets of data when I do this. I have my actual model, which is based on all of the box score stats. So it's building a line for the game. And then I just keep a fantasy points per possession number. That the only input to this is just simply whatever they scored on a given day. I use all of the data that I have in my database. I count old shit less than I count new shit. But I have like a very low projection for Aldridge, and the model is actually projecting higher than just his actual per possession performance has been. Normally when those two things are really off one way or the other, I like to dig in, but they're almost equal. So I don't feel like I'm underrepresenting his upside. He's just a guy that I have no interest in today. A lot has to do with the total of this game. Like that, it's the lowest total of the entire slate. 105.75 for the Spurs as a favorite is still the second highest or second lowest of everybody. So it's just, to me, it's a bad fantasy game.
Yeah, see, we can move on because we don't have a ton of time. But the only counterpoint to that, and again, I'm not playing much Aldridge or any DeRozan, but I honestly don't even care about totals. I care about totals, but I don't care nearly as much about totals if it's a team where I know that the usage is so heavily concentrated between one or two players. Just a point going forward, that if it's a high total between two teams that spread the ball around, does that make it a better fantasy game than a lower total game where I know that this guy's going to jack up 20 shots no matter what? But I don't have any Spurs either. Oladipo is my guy here. Let's move on. Philly and Milwaukee. Adam said he had Giannis projected for like 74, which is insane. Can he do it? Yeah, he's a monster.
I think that's what happened to him. I think he passed out from all the drugs he's on for projecting Giannis to 74 points.
And he asked me like he was trying to get a reaction. He knew that it was crazy. But
for reference, I have him at 52 DK points.
52? Let me see what I have him at. I thought I had him higher than that. Hold on. I have him at 54. So I think that sounds about right.
52 is the third highest projection I have on all of DraftKings. So if we're looking for like a relative scale, he's the third highest projection I have.
If it's at 74, he's like 20 points higher than the next guy.
If I had him in at 74, I'd have him in 100% of my lineups.
Right. But again, rim protection means less. Like Sixers rim protection when Giannis is not the guy that needs to beat you in the half court. You know what I mean? Like Giannis grabs a defensive rebound, takes 2 strides,
and is
at the other basket before anyone can blink. Right?
Yeah.
It's just the way he is. And I always say antelope-like strides with Giannis. It's very what's rim protection worth when you can't even get set against someone like him because he's up and down the court in the blink of an eye?
It's like that Space Jam scene with Jordan where his arm stretches out like the whole length of the court.
Yeah, exactly. No, for sure. So, Dan Server, my dude, Dan, what's up, buddy? Locking in Oladipo just for your rant. This is either going to go really good or really bad, and I'm going to get a lot of hate. But you know what? Sometimes you gotta take some shots, right?
Barring injury or like really crazy foul trouble, it's going to be hard for it to go really wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
unless the Spurs win by 40.
Right, exactly. And I don't think that someone mentioned in the chat that Oladipo shouldn't be the best player on any team. Well, Michael Carter Williams shouldn't have been the best player on the 2013 or 13 Sixers, but he was, and he was a fantasy stud all year long. So that really doesn't mean dick in the grand scheme of things, It's what usage is, and that. So think about it.
I think your partner in crime is back, or at least working his way back.
Oh, that's good. He has 5 minutes. Nice work.
I'm supposed to let you know that you could have a couple extra minutes per Fast Eddie Fear.
Okay, well, we'll go to 6. We'll go to 6.
Perfect.
And then Eddie will have a good hour here, and then everybody's happy. But anyway, with Simmons back, Joel just played 39 minutes. This is a back-to-back. He's just been a dominant monster all year. But outside of Giannis, and I could be wrong. Like I could see this being a sneaky good fantasy game. I'm having trouble getting these guys into my lineup outside of Giannis.
All you, Adam. I'm out.
Yeah, so I really like Giannis. I'm not sure what you said about him, but love Giannis here. So
74.
What'd you say?
That you're nuts for having him projected at 74, but I like him a lot as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I think he plays big minutes here. We've seen Philadelphia just get absolutely wrecked by, athletic fours, basically. Like, obviously, Simmons didn't play last night, but the monster game to Griffin, they gave up a huge game to, I think it was Aaron Gordon. They gave up the huge game to Jason Tatum opening night. And Giannis, his rates this year are just through the roof. He's got a 40.5% usage rate. He's got a 33% assist rate. He's got a 23.5% rebounding percentage.
Crazy.
And I mentioned it to Josh this morning that I don't know if you remember, but when Brook Lopez was on the Lakers, we had that stretch where Josh Hart was getting like 10 rebounds a night, and we couldn't figure out why for a while. And the reason was because Brook Lopez was boxing out and then just letting Josh Hart grab the rebounds. And I haven't paid attention to it this season, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if you're seeing a similar thing happen with Giannis, and that's why he's out there grabbing 15, 18 rebounds every single night. So I absolutely love him here. I have him obviously as my top scoring player on the slate. Yeah, I think it's a really good spot for him, but I caught the end of what you were saying. Outside of him, I don't have a lot of interest in this game either. I think it's a great spot for Embiid, but center is just so deep in the mid-range that I doubt I'll really get up to that much, especially on the second half of a back-to-back after playing 39 minutes last night.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then everything else just kind of, they're priced up a little bit too from yesterday. So it's mostly just Giannis for me.
Yeah, and I know he's fully healthy, but it's just one of those things where, like, 39 minutes back to back, I think you can do a little better. Just real quickly, because you missed my epic rant where people were telling me to take a breath. What are your thoughts? Yeah, dude, I just really like him. What are your thoughts on the Pacers and Spurs? Make it quick, but just to recap.
Yeah, I really like Oladipo too. I'm sure you touched on the transition numbers
there we go.
Oladipo has and that the Spurs have. Yeah, I like Oladipo. I talked about it this morning too, that as the show went on, I just started to like him really, really a lot more. So yeah, I like him a lot. I expect I'll have a bunch of him. DeRozan I like. Aldridge I'm lower on because he's more expensive. And DeRozan is picking up a bunch of assists as well. So I think that he has the higher ceiling out of the two of them. Yeah, I think that's about it from that game.
Yeah, it's just funny. Low total, but it's a game where there are literally 3 guys that are going to do all of the lifting,
Yep.
So, all right, we got 7 minutes here. Thanks to Eddie letting us go a little bit longer since you fell off. Lakers and Phoenix, high total game. The 0-3 Lakers, the 0-3 Lakers against the 1-2. That's right. The Suns have more wins than the Lakers, Ring Rim. There's always that game where LeBron's like, all right, let me quiet the fan base down a little bit. Let me just go out there and do what I have to do. And, it's funny. It's a very small sample, but LeBron James with Rondo on the court has an 18% assist rate this year with Rondo off the court. And we had 49 minutes and 70 minutes. With off the court, 38%. And then his usage rate with Ingram on the court is 24%. With him off the court is 34%. I mentioned this because every little bit counts when you're talking about a guy that's this expensive. And Rondo is somebody that I think LeBron trusts to facilitate more than he would Lonzo Ball. I think you have triple-double upside for LeBron James here, but I know your love for Giannis is so much that it's going to be hard for you to get LeBron, and would be my guess.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that he has triple-double upside, and I'm not playing, like 60 or 70% Giannis tonight because I think it is a really good spot for LeBron, and I don't want to just completely, take him out of my lineups. So, I do like LeBron a lot here, but one thing that I do think also makes me like Giannis a little bit more out of the guys that I'm paying up for is I can get plenty of exposure to this game without paying for LeBron. I can go to Kyle Kuzma, who I think plays about 38 minutes. I can go to Lonzo, who I think plays 32 or 33. I can go to JaVale McGee, who you mentioned earlier. I can go to so many guys here and look to pick up, a bunch of production for a much lower price tag. Whereas on the Bucks, you basically know where everything's coming from, and it's all coming from Giannis.
Oh, good point.
With something and Bledsoe mixed in.
It's a good point. By the way, I tweeted this earlier. Kyle Kuzma, 85% of his field goal attempts this year have been either within 5 feet of the basket or from 3-point range. That's fantasy gold, Adam.
Yeah. Their rotation that last game was a real pain in the ass to dig through, by the way, because
oh my God, it was terrible.
Yeah. So I ended up I assume Kuzma still plays at the 5. I don't think Zubats and Williams combined for a bunch of backup minutes to McGee here. I think that had more to do with, I don't remember what I thought it had to do with now, but it had to do with something that I think was weird.
We have Jonathan Williams too.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kuzma doesn't see minutes at the 5. but I think he will. But regardless, I think he sees a bunch of minutes. It's just a matter of what position it's at.
So
If he
go ahead.
if he does get to play back up 5 minutes against Tyson Chandler, he's going to score like 2 points a minute.
Right. I think a lot of this comes down to what Luke Walton decides to do, because DeAndre Ayton's a freak of nature. Okay. This dude is 7'1" with a 7'6" wingspan. He floats across the court. He is an amazing rebounder. He can clean up everything around the glass. His basketball IQ is through the roof. His vision is amazing. If Luke Walton says, all right, you know what? I need a big out there to contend with the second best player on the court for Phoenix, then JaVale McGee might play another 28 minutes. He played those 28 minutes in regulation, not in overtime, by the way. If Luke Walton says, you know what, we're going to try and run him off the court and go smaller, then they could do that. But the problem is DeAndre Ayton is 7'1", but he can play like he's 6'2". So there aren't really many remedies here. And that's why I wouldn't be surprised to see McGee play another 28 minutes in this matchup.
Yeah, I like McGee. I also like Ayton a lot.
I love Ayton. He's
I have Ayton ahead of Whiteside, Cantor, all those guys we talked about before.
Yeah, me too. Ayton that can produce Ben Simmons like rookie numbers.
Yeah,
in the sense of a rookie coming in and just doing everything.
Yeah. So I like both of those guys. I think McGee looked like he was going to play, a good 26, 27, 28 minutes, even without overtime if he hadn't gotten in foul trouble. So I do have interest in him for sure.
Real quickly. Where are you at on Booker?
Love him. 34% usage rate, 33% assist percentage, huge pace up game against a team that's just running like crazy in the Lakers. I love Devin Booker.
Yep, and this is why I think you can go with mid-range lineups without having to pay up. All right, Memphis and Sacramento. I like Mike Conley. What are you doing with this game?
I like Jaren Jackson. I like whoever the hell plays for Memphis. Garrett Temple's questionable. I have him projected for 36 minutes. You utilize late swap on DraftKings. Just make your lineups with one of these guys and then figure out who's playing later.
Pretty much. Anything from the other side, or is that pretty much it?
It's pretty much it.
All right. Last one here. Washington and Golden State. I'll be honest with you. I don't think I have anyone from this game, Adam.
Yeah, I like Markieff, and I don't mind mixing in like Jeff Green because I think the game does go small. Mahimi, last I saw, is still questionable, so you could really see the game go small, but nothing that I'm really prioritizing here.
Yeah, it's just very tough to get these guys into the lineups when there's just so many other great plays. I'm looking before we head out for news, but I know that Eddie will take care of that once we turn it over to him. So we've got 2 minutes here. Let's go over our top positions and we'll head out for the night. Turn it over to Eddie and Josh. Top point guards.
Zach LaVine, I'm going to classify as a point guard. Kemba and Trae Young.
Yeah, Trae Young. It's hard with the classifications here. I'm gonna put. I have a lot of Oladipo here, and I love Oladipo, obviously. So I'll put Oladipo here as well, and then we'll go with Harden at point guard too, because I have plenty of shooting guard. Shooting guard, Zach LaVine, Doncic, and if you wanted to go a little bit cheaper, I think someone like Cedi Osman and I don't know, so much more. You can name a couple.
Oladipo, Luka, James Harden, DeRozan.
All right, small forward.
Giannis, LeBron, obviously, and you can play Luka there as well, but Kyle Kuzma and Taurean Prince.
Giannis and LeBron far and away, my guys. Taurean Prince, you just mentioned him. Kyle Kuzma, and I really like Kawhi Leonard. I just don't think I'm going to be able to get him in there. And you know what? With the usage and with the amount of opportunities Jingles has seen, I'm gonna mention him because it's only fair. Power forward, not as deep. I think it's a very good spot for Kevin Love. Kuzma is where I'd probably be playing here. Jaren Jackson, and then a little bit of LaMarcus Aldridge, but it's hard to get him in there. What about you?
Yeah, Kevin Love. I forgot to mention Chetty at small forward, but I like him a lot. But Kevin Love at power forward, Jaren Jackson, Wendell Carter.
Okay, and center?
Ayton, Cantor, Karl Anthony Towns.
All right, and Yeah, give me by the way, we had a comment. Somebody just mentioned that McGee fouled out last game, and a great point. I forgot to mention that he did, because he actually played like 20 seconds into overtime. He was going to keep playing in overtime. Walton's not afraid to give him run. I like McGee, but give me McGee and Carter Jr., Wendell Carter Jr. as the value plays, and then DeAndre Ayton and Whiteside as my top guys in that mid range, and Karl Anthony Towns. That'll do it for us. Hey, thanks, Eddie. Blame it on Adam. Josh, thanks for filling in for us. Remember, tomorrow night, 6:15, Alex Baker, Awesemo, going to be with us as we go throughout the show. Good luck tonight. You have any questions, hit us up on Slack or on Twitter, and we'll catch you back here tomorrow on the Deeper Dive. Peace.